And in a matter of 30 days, this became half of our revenue. A lot of the innovation comes from what you observe.
That the more you talk to your customers, the more you talk to your potential customers largely, that is where you will get the insight. It is no level of secondary research or looking at data and other things is going to serve you as much as it is going to be when you're talking to real users. This is the seventh episode of the Startup Bootcamp, which we have been running for the last 1.5, 2 months now, and this is part of the Change Engines program. And I just take a minute to talk about what ACE is, which is Agents of Change Entrepreneurs. Before that, I would quickly want to introduce myself. My name is Shailendra, and I am one of the co-founders at Change Engine. And along with Khilan, I've done my MBA from ISB. We were batchmates there, and I'm an engineer, as I guess most of you are in this call. And I've worked in multiple organizations, starting from Make My Trip to Nearby, Magic Bricks, Max Life Insurance, Spinny, all as product person, and have this experience of scaling things, creating things first from 0 to 1, and then scaling things all the way there. And in my current role as the co-founder here at Change Engine, our intent is to actually help some of the early stage founders who are dabbling with an idea, who are want to create an organization, have a problem which they want to work on, and but don't have enough guidance or advice coming in. So we help them to take a product from idea all the way to the final product, and help them all this in this journey of entrepreneurship, and then eventually help them to raise fund for themselves. It's a 6-month fully paid program, which is like a startup accelerator program, where this is a fully paid program as well, and this is a co-located program which is run out of the Gurgaon office, and where we are looking at entrepreneurs who are trying to solve difficult problems. The current cohort is already live, where we have 5 startups which are working with us. You can see on your screen there is Bhavesh, Nikhil, who's we're working on Call Prep tool, which is the AI-enabled sales tool. And we have Pavan and Vivek, who are working on AI-enabled video editor. And then we have 3 non-profit organizations by Anurag, Ritvik, and Sonali, all very different areas and very, very ambitious in their approach. So, as I said, we give rupees 6 lakh as initial funding, which can go all the way to 20 lakh rupees, basis how the startups progress. And then we have other perks, which you can see on your screen. I'm just rushing through so that we can get to the main agenda for today. And for more information, you can, of course, go to the website, which my colleague, Akshat will ping on the chat. And you can go to the website. You can know more about the program. And if anybody is interested, anybody has an idea, they can apply for the next cohort, which is going to start in June 2024. And this is the founding team led by Varun, who happens to be my senior from my college, NSIT, and then did his master's from MIT, and in an area which is now everybody's favorite area, but was very less known of back in 2006-7, which is AI. And then founded this very iconic company called Aspiring Minds. I'm sure many of you would have taken the AMCAT tests and all. And then is now leading this ACE program. And along with me, I have Shubham, who is from IT Delhi. And he's not on this call today. I think he's getting married this weekend. And he's from the Y Combinator batch of 2021, and is a co-founder of Leap Club. And yes, back to what we are here for today, which is we want to have this discussion with one of the people who understand product very, very well, who has worked in multiple organizations, from very huge, big multinational corporations to startups, very early startups, to now unicorns. And Khilan, and we've studied together at ISB, and I remember when we were graduating from ISB, and Kalan, I'm sure you would remember that as well. Product management, as such, was a very, very unheard term. And I remember at that point, there were only 4 or 5 organizations which came for product management roles. Make My Trip was one of them where I went. Yahoo was another where Khilan started his product management journey. Then there was Google, and then there was InfoEdge, and a few other companies. I think that's it. And now, if I look at ISB or any other IIMs and others, I think more than 50% of the openings which are coming out for product manager roles. So time has changed from there to now. So I would want to talk about each of these and how we have seen this product management aspect growing from when we started to where we are now, where product is the thing, and in fact now people are rising up to it and people are now understanding what is product. So maybe let's get started by that, Kilan. If you look back in this last 12 years, 12, 13 years, and from where you started from Yahoo, then Tribo, and then Razorpay, how have you seen this change in product management? And have now people started to understand what is product management, or is still some way to go? And what is your take on this?
Yeah, thanks, Shalindra. Folks, thanks for taking time late evening for this session. Look forward to interacting with you all. Uh, I think aptly, Shalindra, as you called out, I think 15 years back, product used to be loosely attached to engineering,
Yeah.
especially in the Indian context. And we would largely have MNCs who are actually building products for markets in US and Europe, and those are the folks who were hiring product managers with the customer backward roles back in India, largely from a cost and efficiency perspective, because they would have an engineering setup here as well. And many of us and extensively travel to west to understand customers and all. Yeah, and barring that, most of the Indian companies I remember heavily uh, uh, kind of had an interlinkage between product and tech, and the differentiation was minimal. A lot of times, what product managers did was closer to either project managers, program managers, or engineering managers, and the confusion amongst these three, four roles continued back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, from then to now, as we have so many organizations, startups, and scaled up companies now who focus on the Indian, consumption pattern that's been growing, significantly. And I think our technology led, right? And hence, I think this has led to the emergence of product as a very active function now,
Yeah.
which is trying to help scale many of these technology led organizations now.
Yeah, agree. So you touched upon the fact that many people misunderstand product and technology, and there is this difference. I think for everybody's sake, and I think there are what number of people, and how many of you are engineers here, by the way, if you can just raise your hand. Oh, I can see 5 engineers at least, and maybe more. And so, if you can just explain, Kilan, for everybody's understanding, how do you differentiate between core technology and product? Because, and the way why I'm asking this is when we talk to, and we frequently work with a lot of college graduates and mostly engineers. When we go to them, they have an idea and they think they will create something. Uh, they are thinking pure technology, they're thinking pure coding, and they will say, now I have done this, I've created this model, or I've created this website, and they think that's it, right? Because that is it. In fact, and I don't blame them, because I remember also uh, we also used to think like that. At least I used to think like that a lot when I was graduating, that this is it. But how do you uh, layer it with consumer understanding and the whole experience bit? So in your way, how do you define the difference between core technology and product?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The technology and engineering in the world of software has always taken a very important role, and which is to actually build the software, right? And I think that itself is a very complex role to get it right, and to get it in an extremely fast paced time, right? uh, given if you are going to innovate through software, you got to be very agile and move very, very fast with new innovations on an ongoing basis, right? So primarily the role is a build first role for engineering is what I've observed, right? It doesn't mean that engineering doesn't do things beyond build. They do contribute a lot to ideation because a lot of ideas are actually tech first, engineering first. They contribute a lot to customer discovery, problem solving, even servicing to some extent. Having said that, and there are other functions like sales who are selling actively. Tech is building actively, and there are functions like operations, customer success who are servicing actively, right? Amongst all of this, what used to happen is that there is no one who's actively and loosely calling, thinking for the customer, figuring out what to build, putting together a strategy on why this makes sense for the customer, how many customers are around who will actually use it, taking some of these innovations to market, right? So I think that became a void space, and product as a function emerged, in the last 3 decades, largely to solve for that void space. That if you have a dedicated specialist who's doing build, you should also have a dedicated specialist who's actually doing discovery and go to market. So largely product became a function to start doing discovery and go to market. And I still loosely call the most dispensable function in the early days, because you need builders and you need sellers, but you may not necessarily need discoverers. And hence in a lot of startups, founders are PMs, right?
Right.
Founders play this role in the early days, and they are the non-designated PMs who do a lot of this.
Yeah.
And at some point they realize that a lot of their energy is actually going either in sales or in venture funding or in XYZ, and they need someone else who specializes and does this in a dedicated manner.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, the way I always say this to people is that there is no designated function who is supposed to be thinking for on customers' behalf, right? Everybody says that they think on customers' behalf, but there is salespeople who are responsible for bringing revenue. There are technology who is responsible for coding and so on. But if there's one function which is squarely responsible for thinking on behalf of the customer, it is product, and that is what differentiates them largely between technology and product also, and of course the discovery part which you said. So talking about that discovery part also, that you have worked in organizations such as Tribo, which was I'm assuming a very early stage organization where you would have probably one of the first few product people to sort of build things from scratch, to Razorpay, where I am again assuming when you had joined, Razorpay would have been already established, decently established organization, and of course not a unicorn. Now, of course, a unicorn and a well-respected organization, product organization uh, in the country, if not the world. So between doing something on a 0 to 1 scale, which is what you would have done at Tribo, to things which are, people say 1 to 100 or 10 to 100 or 99 or whatever. How do you differentiate between these two kind of work, and which one personally do you sort of enjoyed more, and what are the differences, nuance between these two? Because for most of the people who are in the call probably are thinking of starting something of their own. So of course the hard work will be on 0 to 1, but that is not where the journey stops, right? That is where the journey starts. So they should also understand how should you think about the 1 to 100 or the 10 to 100 journey, and are there any fundamentals, basic building blocks which they need to be thinking about even now when they're doing this, right? Remember, because once you've reached there, you cannot be starting from the scratch, because now you realize suddenly that it cannot scale. We've created something, but it's not scalable. So from a product perspective, how do you create things which are also scalable? So if you can talk about your journey in two halves, to 0 to 1 product and 1 to 100 product, and share something around this.
No, a great question, Shailendra. And I've been part of 3 startups before Razorpay, and all 3 of them were pre-product market fit when I joined, right? Which I'm loosely classifying 0 to 1. And getting to product market fit is an extremely difficult thing, right? And uh, of course, that brings a different amount of energy and excitement to many of us to having to solve something, afresh. But yeah, in 0 to 1 days, it's important to keep discovering and to keep trying things out until you get some sort of validation. And the validation that I typically look for is if you are creating value for customers, right? And if customers appreciate that value, And would there be a void if we were not creating the value? And I think the last one is, are we able to capture some of the value, right? So I do see that many of the organizations, even the ones that I worked at, sometimes we would focus a lot more on one of these, either value creation or value capture or value validation, right? The ones that do well are the ones that kind of do all of them, because value creation's comfort without monetization is very tough compared to the day you start charging, right?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, some of these are the suggestions that I would have for people who are starting, right? That always start thinking about that, whether the customers see the value, appreciate the value when they have to loosely pay for it, right? Through something or the other.
Yeah.
And those are things you should try out early on. And I think in the early days, it's okay to not get these things right, which means 0 to 1, you could keep iterating. You don't need the perfect price, you don't need the perfect value, you don't need the perfect product, but you do need customers who love your product, and you do need customers who are willing to pay for it and are paying for it, and they're bringing more customers, right? I think the moment you got this, that is when I call you got a PMF, and after that you got to start figuring out how you scale it. The other thing that's important in the 0 to 1 days is also to ensure that you try and understand how large the market is. Because a lot of times you end up solving a very small problem, and even if you get to PMF, there isn't a large opportunity to scale it, right? So I think second, that's also important for me. Like in Trivo, when the company started, I joined in about a year into its I think a year into its journey, and the problem statement was clear that in the budget accommodation space, there weren't enough high quality hotels out there, right? So if you wanted good quality, which is clean bed sheets, clean bathrooms, television that work, you got to pay a bomb, right? You got to go to a 3-star or a 4-star. So below that, there weren't good chains available, good hotels available. So that's the secret spot that Trivo started solving, and they were extremely clear about this problem statement.
So you were, if I were to reiterate, you were between Oyo and the Make My Trip, sort of.
I will say Make My Trip was more a aggregator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's say the likes of Ginger or the likes of Lemon
Lemon
Tree and
Tree.
all, right?
Yeah.
So these are your 3.5, 4 stars, right? And Oyo's at that point kind of operated closer to Make My Trip model, aggregator model. So they also started with the same problem statement, but they didn't solve it too well until Tribo came around, right? So Tribo tried a few things to get to that sweet spot where they were able to first get a view whether quality is appreciated. That they discovered very early quality is appreciated. Second, they iterated to find a way to solve for quality. It wasn't easy, right? And once they did, they started scaling it, right? And the big challenge in the Tribo model actually was 2, 3, right? And many of these, you are creating value not for one side of the network, but two sides. Tribo was trying to create value for one, the guest who's traveling, and second, the hotelier to whom we are forcing to adhere to the quality standards, right? Because many of actually all of our hotels are running on franchisee model. We were not owning or operating any of these, right? And for us to create value for hotel was the toughest part, right? And in the early days, we bought it by practically saying that we book the room, we are going to help you increase your revenue by 20%, but they'll not believe because they've not seen demonstration. So we'll say, don't worry, we'll guarantee your 20% increase. Today, if you make 50 lakhs a month, we'll pay you plus 20%, right? Then it's up to us to drive demand, and because of the quality promise and the flywheel that we are promising you, right? So in the early days, one side of the flywheel, we had to kick it through monetize, through actually paying them. But the interesting part was the true PMF came when we actually stopped giving guarantees. Right? That is when we realized traveler side product market was clear, but on the hotel side, whether these hotels will still be a part of the network and will want to work with us. And they did. Many of them, actually most of them, stayed back with us because they genuinely saw revenue uplift, right? So yeah, I think, and then of course once that happened, the way to scale is there, and in sometimes there are constraints such as the capital needed, etc., the macroeconomic headwind for Tribo around COVID and all that. So it went through its own set of macro challenges, but overall the journey was interesting, where you were able to figure out how to get to PMF. Similarly, startup I worked before that, I think, was very interesting, where it had product market fit in the US market, selling premium tea, actively bought in US and I think UK, if I'm right, back then. And I came in, and my job was to figure out if we can establish India as a market and China as a market. Actually, Russia and US and UK were the 3 large markets where we had PMF. So yeah, it was interesting to figure out that why people in India weren't buying premium tea. What was the challenge? We were doing a lot of ads, and our conversion was extremely low, right? Yeah, so journey was interesting where we had to uncover, and what we uncovered through hard realization is our tea was expensive, but India had enough rich people. We were selling premium tea at 20,000 per kg. But the challenge was our catalog was confusing for people. When you're buying a luxury product, unless you know what you want to buy, you are going to keep second guessing if that's for me, right? And in India, we didn't have in tea world we call it connoisseurs and sommeliers, like you would have in wine and single malt and all. India didn't have enough of these, so India had enthusiasts who wanted to become sommeliers and who had enough money, but they didn't know where to start. And this problem discovery took like more than a month for us. That this was the real problem. But the moment we discovered this real problem, we potentially put an experiment on how to help these enthusiasts to become sommeliers, and we tried a hack, right? The hack was as hacky as I had to actually do a SQL insert to create an order. So genuinely, there was a front end, no back end, right? And then we marketed it as an AI first engine. There was some rudimentary AI. So we did a lot of background work, but we ran it as a hack, and we saw phenomenal product market fit. Right? In a matter of 30 days, this became half of our revenue.
So what exactly was the hack, if you can share?
The hack essentially was that, see, what we realized is we had to help these customers discover tea, right? And for every tea, we actually first, we had a catalog of 250 tea. So we put together roughly, I think, some 70 or 80 properties for every tea. That is this tea sweet? If it is sweet, is the sweetness like jaggery or like honey, right? Where is it grown? Is the soil of this composition? So we put together so many properties, and of course these properties customers will not relate. What we would ask to the customer through, and we kind of learned this through how wine does, by the way. So a lot of the innovation comes from what you observe. In my opinion, there is nothing called as new innovation.
Yeah.
People will say you copy, but actually if you go deeper into reading innovation, there is nothing called new idea. Every idea is
an inspiration from
inspiration, extension on top of something, including the Statue of Liberty in New York is an extension on top of 3-4 ideas, including what Newton did, including what people did out there, right? So we actually took a lot of inspiration from wine. Wine had the same problem, and wine in offline shops, if you would go, they'll actually, wine shopkeeper out there, if you go to premium wine shops, will actually guide you by asking basic questions to understand more about you as a user. Then we'll suggest this is the wine that actually might be a fit for you. So that's
did you also go through this, like, as from a user testing perspective or understanding? Did you go through the wine testing process, or you had people who knew about this?
We didn't go through wine testing. This was all like, this is all through brainstorming. We realized that the same problem exists over there. How do they solve for it?
Right.
And we knew they've solved through this, and there is enough and more research out there on it, right? Also, companies that solved through this in the online model also, not just offline. So it's not that we were trying to, discover, do it. It was out there. So we said, let's just try and see if something similar works over here. So we started doing the same thing through primary research, where you ask the user 5-6 questions. And basis that we will loosely, I'll call through not data science, but through basic filtration, not even regression, right? What are the potential top 3 trees where my regression score is hitting the highest? So the moment someone answers 7 questions to me, those questions would be fed to an Excel. That Excel macro would tell me that these are the 3 T's he's going to like the most. And we told him, if you don't like it, money back. Our gross margin was 85%, so we could afford to do it. So we said, we don't like it, money back. And we said, if 75% people like it and don't ask for money back, this is profitable for us. So experiment is successful. We'll scale. We hit accuracy of 98.5% in the V1.
Wow.
Which is again Excel sheet, regression model running out there, right? We iterated, we built actually a proper data science model on it, we scaled it, and this became a large part of our revenue and we got product market fit in India as we scaled.
So clearly, I can see 2 learnings for me personally. One is that, and for everybody else, that, you don't, and a lot of people actually end up creating the whole facade, the whole product, in the hope that they will only be able to get a PMF or feedback only when they have created everything, which is far from true, right? You can actually get the feedback by just doing some rudimentary facade and create something, as you were saying. And second was that there are always these analogies and comparable products and comparable experiences. If you're creating something, maybe you think this is the first you have ever created, but as you said, you can always copy and get inspiration from others. And if it is tea, you can take inspiration from wine. If it is you're doing something else, you can take inspiration from a different similar looking product, and then of course apply your own intuition and context to this, and learn a lot. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and see, by the way, for us also the problem discovery wasn't easy, right? I'm talking about the solution or ideation part now, but problem discovery meant we had to speak to a lot of users. To get to this understanding that why are we unable to sell in India? Why is our conversion abysmally low, right? First we of course went into all analytics. We ate up everything that GA could produce for us. We could not figure out. We went into all the consoles that we could, SEO consoles, marketing consoles, Facebook as well as Google Ads. We spending money there. He said, "Samajh mein nahi aa raha what's happening," right? When we uncovered the problem only when together a few of us spoke to like 20, 25 customers. This is the real issue.
Yeah. That is also a very good insight, and I keep talking to everybody, and also for entrepreneurs largely, that the more you talk to your customers, the more you talk to your potential customers largely, that is where you will get the insight. It is no level of secondary research or looking at data and other things is going to serve you as much as it is going to be when you're talking to real users. And that works in product, that works in startup, that works everywhere. So there is nothing which beats that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Razorpay has been an interesting journey. And the good part over here is that when I joined, we were doing well. We had solid product market fit in many of our products and verticals. Our core offering was payment gateway, and it sold like a hot cake to startups and to SMEs and to everyone, and to few enterprises. But I learned the hard way that it didn't sell easily to a lot of enterprises we wanted to, right? So loosely, I started focusing a lot on scaling the enterprise segment, and in the journey I realized that we don't have true product market fit in enterprise. So we had some business, but we didn't have enough product market fit where it could scale on its own. So yeah,
And what was the difference, if you can elaborate that? Why was it a good fit for small SMEs and not for big enterprises?
To an extent, the needs differ. Enterprises wanted, let's say, a product that was, a lot more consistent with respect to the scale it could deliver. So I remember 2019, the first time I joined Razorpay, the first IPL match we broke. Right? Dream 11 was a customer, and the scale they pumped in, we weren't ready to support. Right, so this is something that the other customers didn't need. Even the other enterprises didn't need. Like Dream 11 was an outlier back then for us. So the scale that they need is different. Sometimes they need a lot of deeper features which others don't need. Like I remember a customer who wanted like separation between authentication and authorization, and we still didn't see value for it. But that customer was getting it from someone else and was fixated, without this I'm not going to use, right? Even if they like value from others. So switching cost was there, and hence they had to really understand and be clear about the value, and sometimes even ask for things that didn't make sense, right? So a lot more depth, a lot more vertical focus, and a lot more onus on both stability and scalability. And yeah, I mean, hence it meant actually doing a lot of boring things. For that 1 year, for us to get to fitment in enterprise, we did so many boring things, including going to enterprises, doing workshops on helping them understand conversion, success rate. I remember a customer to whom we practically went 15 times every Thursday, which is myself and one of my PMs with their product managers on the other side, who are the decision makers, to help them understand that you're comparing apple to orange. And
because payment success rate itself can be very, very difficult.
And we convince them that our SR is actually better, right? And we learned that these are the things we'll need to do to an enterprise. So through some of these non-scalable means, we found what are the real problems to solve in enterprise, which will help us scale. Some of them are perception, some of them are education, some of them are actually new product builds, right? Some of put together, between product and business, I think found some of these answers, and in 1 year, 1.5 years, we got to crazy scale.
Yeah. So as you were talking between Tribo and now this, of course, this is a B2C play and then there is a B2B play. Which one do you personally enjoy more? And because there are, and we support people who are building both B2C and B2B products, any high level guidelines to each to make sure that they are doing the product right? And what are the differences between these two products?
Yeah, yeah. No, I personally enjoy the B2B play more.
Okay.
Very few people. I mean, I know a lot of people find B2C,
Yeah,
I would
it's
say
more
a lot more,
exciting. Yeah.
a lot more exciting, or because it's a lot more user experience heavy.
Right.
Uh, I love B2B any day, and like Razorpay and Yahoo were both like full B2B stints for me, right?
Right.
While all the other startups were mostly, B2C heavy.
Mm.
Reason I like B2B is one, I can relate to the problem a lot easier.
Mm.
And for me as a PM, I've got to be able to relate and got to be able to love their problem. And I grew up in business, background where everyone around me was in business.
Mm.
So I understood small businesses very well. I
Mm.
understood the pain they go through, what it takes to grow their business, what are the challenges, and hence what are the enablement they need. And when internet as a channel came, how they got disrupted and how they can be enabled now, right? So yeah, any kind of B2B enablement that helps businesses drive growth.
Mm.
I personally feel very attached to the problem, and that's what excites me, motivates me.
Mm.
B2C, it's not that I don't like it.
Mm.
Like, for example, I've loved all my B2C stints,
Mm.
and I picked it specifically if I could relate to problem.
Mm.
Like, I was an avid tea drinker. A lot of Indians are, right? To the extent that I would always make my own tea, even if
Okay.
it's 5 times a day, right?
Okay.
Very specific kind of tea I want to have and all that. So I was very fascinated when I realized India's tea market is so large, and actually there's a concept of premium tea. And I loved when I visited all those tea gardens and kind of hospitality, and these are all 200 year old stuff and all, right?
Mm.
So first, I think you got to be passionate about the problem.
Mm.
You got to be able to relate to the problem, and then I think you will enjoy. All of us will enjoy both, and that's when we'll be able to devote the kind of energy a modern product engineering role demands.
Mm.
It's an extremely high intensity, high energy role,
Mm.
and entrepreneurship is even more high intensity, high energy.
Mm.
So unless you relate to your problem, you won't really enjoy the journey.
One question which I think a lot of people go through and ask, I also went through and found my own solution, but I want to ask you is, in B2C, because there are faceless customers, right? You don't know them. And then these are all data points, records. And you will say that if it works 80%, I will just go ahead and do it. I don't care about the rest 20% because those 20% do not have a voice. But in enterprise and B2B, those 20% people can come to your office, sit on your head, and the sales people will be like after your life to make sure you do this. So both as a product manager and as a founder, how do you balance between what is the right thing from an enterprise perspective, enterprise as in from the architecture perspective to do, versus these are outliers, I'm not going to entertain those? Because as you said, like some of those enterprises were asking you for some irrational things which didn't make sense to you, but you still did it because this was maybe a business compulsion or
Well,
whatever.
it is our job to help them understand, and help them create value, right?
Right.
So I think if we believe that they'll get value through other means, we need to convince them, right?
Mm.
At the end of the day, customers got to see value, right? And that's where our job ends, right? If they see value, then I think we'll find a way to extract value for the organization. Uh, I think a big nuance and difference is, I think, in enterprise or in the B2B world, enterprise as a segment is what I loosely call generally an assisted segment, right? So there is a people angle to it, there is an account management angle to it, servicing angle to it, and sales angle to it.
Right.
Versus the B2C is self-serve.
Yeah.
Similarly, B2B also has a self-serve segment. Typically,
Mm.
MSMEs or the smaller, businesses generally are self-serve. So there, I think a lot of B2C principles apply.
Mm.
Because you are unable to, at the scale of millions of B2B MSMEs,
Mm.
be able to have a connect with them both for sales and servicing. So most of the B2C principles apply there. And B2C principles don't mean that if it works for 80 you scale, because you might have still sub segmented, right?
Mm.
But at some point you are right that it's a lot more data driven rather than customer connect driven. But to be in enterprise becomes a lot more customer connect driven than data driven.
Mm.
And hence, I think one of the DNAs and principles I've seen differently is in B2B, you've got to be right more often, which means, the cost of failure can be high in more cases than B2C. B2C, you could do a lot of AB and still, people will forgive you.
Right.
If you do something that,
In
is
B2B.
not right.
Yeah.
B2B,
Mhm.
and hence the mindset needed for builders and product managers and founders is generally I have seen a lot more research in B2B
Mhm.
rather than experimentation.
Mhm.
And the cost of research sometimes is high. So for us as product folks in Razorpay, compared to the B2C stints I was, we would spend a lot of time in research and validation of the problem even before we get into build, before we get into even specing and writing requirements. Versus in B2C, we'll say, "Yeah, let's try this experiment.
Mhm.
We'll just put like a half page or one pager.
Yeah.
Let's configure an AB and try it. And if it doesn't work, let's ram the bucket down."
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. Good point. So, I think one last question from my side before I open it up for Q&A is, very few people I think would know that Razorpay is not just, of course, it is a payment gateway company, but they are also a lot of trying to build this platform for other startups and small scale companies, organizations. You personally, um, which areas are you passionate about in terms of, if suppose you had to start something of your own today, and knowing how technology is moving with this, the whole talk about LLMs and chat GPT and stuff, is there any area or any topic, any problem which you are personally passionate about, or you want other entrepreneurs to maybe think on those areas?
No, it's very tough. I mean, see, all of us have, I think, areas that we, I think, immerse in. For me, I think solving for business is something I enjoy, right?
Okay.
And I think the addressable market is only increasing. The number of businesses that do a sizable amount of business in India is, I think, only increasing. The number of private limiteds we are incorporating, is decent now.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think the market to build for businesses across so many verticals and so many areas of depth is only increasing, and the depth of the market is only going to go up over the next decade.
Right. Okay. All right. Now I can open it up for questions. So anybody who has a question for Khilan or myself, you can raise your hand, speak, or type in the chat box. We'll be able to take those questions. There was one which I'm trying to answer, which is by just wanted to check if working from Gurgaon is mandatory. Yes, for this program it is mandatory. The program will be run out of Gurgaon. Kishore, you can unmute and speak.
Yeah. So, hi Shalindra, hi Khilan.
Hi. Hi.
So my question is related to go-to-market strategy, like how to finalize the go-to-market strategy, and along with that, the business plan or business model. So that is a very tricky stuff for now, because there are many things that have to do in a product, but I'm still not able to finalize the go-to-market strategy as still building a MVP. So there are many changes happen in the last 1 or 2 months. I'm just, like this stuff I will do, then I have pivot that stuff, then I try to build something different, and again I pivot some points from that, and now have finalized 3 to 4 points now, and I'm working on it.
Mm.
But still I'm not sure that this will work out properly or not. So this is what the question I have right now, like how to finalize the go to market strategy and a business plan.
Okay. So your question is very broad, but if I can summarize, because it can take an entire day to answer this question. But I think largely what I understood was that there are things in your product, because you said you are trying to hit the MVP and PMF, and so you're doing something. You are maybe taking feedback from customers. Is it because you said you will keep changing on this, and then
Yeah.
you're not
So
sure?
I'm sharing it with my friends and families, and getting some updates from them. And if I receive some positive and negative feedback, whatever will be,
Then you're
according
working on it.
to that, I am starting working on it. Likewise.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think Khilan, the question is that he is still figuring out within his friend and family. He's trying to show this product, then he gets feedback, and I think maybe he's in that loop and he does not know when to come out and share it with the users. If I think that's the question.
Yeah. No, Kishore, I think valid question. See, what I'll generally encourage is while you can do validation with friends and family, right? I think the way you should think about is the problem that you are solving, and who are the users, or what is the segment or cohort of users to whom the problem apply, and then validate with someone who actually falls as part of that cohort or segment, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and I think once you are clear on the problem and the customers for whom the problem you're solving, right? And then how you're going to solve it is your product slash the idea, right? I think the go-to market, once the why is clear and the problem is clear and the who is clear, right, is largely around how you reach out to your users, right?
Right.
Go-to market is for me largely three things: segmentation, targeting, positioning, right? So once you figure out the segment of customers to whom this problem is relevant, how do you ensure you position this, problem statement slash value to them clearly, right? And the targeting part is how do you reach out to them, right? So I
Right.
think these are the 2-3 things that really matter in your go to market, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of B2B products in the early days actually sell and build. So they will actually not even build the product. They will just put a PPT and they will test this idea with their customers, right? That this is the problem that we are solving for you. This is actually your product. They will either show a mock-up or they'll show a Figma sometimes, or they'll just have some snapshots in the PPT, or even not that, just a PPT, right? And they'll validate it. And once they are able to see some validation, they'll start building. Sometimes they'll even convert a customer and then they'll start building, right? So a lot of times, I think that validation and discovery is important. Before you get into the build journey, many a times it doesn't mean that you got to always sell and build, but you got to ensure you speak to enough customers and get conviction on the problem and the idea slash solution before you start building.
Yeah. Thank you, Khilan.
I think that point is valid, right, Kishore? There is a book called The Mom's Test. If you haven't read, you should read, which is essentially talks about how to take feedback. And the first page itself says that if you have an idea and suppose you go to your mom and talk about that idea, how would she react? Unfortunately, most of us do that because, when you're talking to your friend, family, people who understand, who know you, they're not unbiased in giving you feedback also, and second, they're not the genuine users of that problem. So
Right.
refrain from taking feedback from people who know you, that you are invested personally in this product.
Right.
You can take it from, like, create a power user group, or create a 5-6 people who are genuine users, who are going to use your product and who are going to pay for that, and take feedback from them rather than taking from your own network.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. Nitin, you want to ask? Nitin Lonar.
Yes. Okay. So thank you, sir, for conducting this session. Very nice insight. Can I talk in Hindi?
हाँ, बोलिए.
Okay. तो शैलेंद्र सर, मेरा नाम डॉक्टर नितिन लोनार है. So I'm a pediatric cardiologist, and very few doctors come into become entrepreneur kind of the journey. So I started this venture called as Free Doctor about 4, 5, 6 months ago, which is I'm trying to build a healthcare social media platform where a networking kind of issue, all the healthcare professionals along with their services. So being from a non-tech background, it's very difficult for me to get a co-founder, a CTO, क्योंकि क्या होता है कि मेरे सारे जो दोस्त है वो सब मेडिकल फील्ड से है, जो भी जिनको और फैमिली मेंबर्स उनको पता नहीं, मतलब मैं महाराष्ट्र से बिलोंग, तो मेरे सब फैमिली मतलब पापा सर्विस में थे, तो मेरे लिए मैं अभी इन्वेस्टर को भी रीच हुआ, मतलब ऑलरेडी एक प्रोडक्ट में बना चुका, उसमें काफी गलतियां की बिकॉज ऑफ एडवाइजर. मुझे मतलब ऐसे नहीं कि मैं रीच आउट नहीं हुआ, लेकिन गलत एडवाइजर मिला, मे बी फ्रॉम डेवलपर्स और समथिंग. उसमें काफी सारी चीजें होते हैं, दे मिसगाइडेड और समथिंग, सो आई वेस्टेड काइंड ऑफ सम मनी. तो अभी फिर से आई एम बिल्डिंग फ्रॉम स्क्रैच, बट इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर मी टू गेट अ को फाउंडर. देन जब मुझे रियलाइज हो कि एक को फाउंडर की क्या जरूरत होती, बिकॉज माई ब्रेन वॉज कम्प्लीटली, मतलब 6 महीने पूरा मैं वही कर रहा था. तो It's very difficult for me to get a co-founder. तो co-founder कैसे हम मतलब जुटा पाए, that is my first question. And equity उसके basis पे मतलब अभी कैसे decide पर directly कोई अगर मैं किसी के पास जाता तो पहले मुझे पूछता कि मुझे कितनी इक्विटी मिलेगी, तो मैं उनको कहता अरे हम अभी एक दूसरे को जानते भी नहीं, तो अभी ये कैसे बात करें. तो this is the biggest challenge I am facing right now.
Okay, have you also applied to this?
हाँ ये मैंने अप्लाई किया. Yes.
ठीक है, तो दो चीजें, एक तो if you apply to our cohort, then what we have, and I think yesterday also we had a session where I tried to answer this, that what we try to do is within the cohort, suppose आप medical background से, and there are others, suppose there is an engineer who is from BITS Pilani or IIT or wherever, NSIT, but he does not have an idea, but he wants to do something. You have an idea, but you don't understand coding. So basically the co-founder ideally should be somebody who has a complementary skill. तो आप बिजनेस डोमेन पजेस करते हैं, वो इंसान प्रोडक्ट या टेक्नोलॉजी समझता है, दैट बिकम्स द but the problem with you will be that how do you get those people, because this is where programs like ours help, because we have this pool where different people who want to do something, want to create. Some people have an idea, some people have technology, etc. Right? So we will also help you to find the right kind of co-founder. Of course we can't guarantee anything, but we will make sure that you are at least exposed to the right number of people. And if you're trying to do personally also, I think you should talk to other people who are outside of your network, who are engineers and others. And of course, as you said, first interaction cannot be on equity. First interaction has to be on mindset match, values match, because this is, it's almost like getting married, right? Because
right, true, very true.
Half of your life you will spend with the co-founder. So the values have to match, and then of course equity can be decided later on, right? And there are different ways to talk about it. We can talk about, I think you can fill up the form, we can talk in detail in one session, because it might not be relevant for everybody else.
Thank you, Khilan sir and Shailendra sir, for putting up all the ideas and guiding us. Thank you.
Thank you. There are a few more questions. Sarath and Saiba.
Hi Shailen, this is Sarath. Shailen, actually I have a product concept which is an edtech analytics. I'm a non-techie, I'm from NIFT. I had my first startup in fashion, and which couldn't run, and we stopped it after a couple of years. And after that, I have done an ample amount of research in data analytics, involvement in the education. So my question is somewhere similar to what Nitin has just asked. So initially, I have onboarded a CTO who since this masterclass is about idea to PMF, where we actually need a techie co-founder to take the things to more tangible. I have onboarded a 10 years MNC experienced techie who was well versed with technology. And he came in, he has done, he was expecting the kind of, mostly it's the people of that experienced are in the EMI loop, one thing, and second thing is they no longer code. That was the second thing. And he started doing certain things, but we eventually nothing turned out to be productive by the end of the month. And later he lost his motivation and he stepped back. And in the second instance, I have onboarded a techie co-founder from IT.
Sarath, once again, see if your question is around organization structure and co-founder specifically, I suggest that we can take it one-on-one. You can apply to this program, and then we normally talk to 90% of the folks one-on-one. So we can talk and discuss. Right now, I think I would want to take questions because Khilan is also here. So questions which are related to product or product market fit and stuff. So sorry, but we will definitely talk to you. You can apply, and then we will take it one-on-one. Will that be fine?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thank you. Khilan, there is some question from Bhavesh that he's asking top 3 product habits you should follow and recommend for early stage startup, and similarly top 3 product mistakes. So I don't know if you'll be able to say top 3 or whatever habits, if you want to share, or any other mistake which people need to avoid.
No, I mean, the habit number one is speak to your customers. I think if you are a entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, solving for, problems and building something, I think 20-30% time has to go in speaking to customers. Otherwise, you will not, build something which is loud and which will scale. I think second one would be very passionate about the problem you're solving. It's a tough journey. It needs a lot of energy intensity. And the third one will be very disciplined, because the journey will have a lot of ups and downs. And there will be days like, and it doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur, but if you're working in the pre-PMF stage, right, there will be days when you will feel like, what am I doing, right? This isn't making progress, right? So there will be that sine wave kind of progress, right? So you have to be disciplined, and you have to an extent, I think, say, persist at the problem, right? So I think these are three things I'll recommend you folks. I think mistakes that I have generally seen, or actually I have done, I think maybe, I think first one is, I think sometimes mistake yourself for a user, which is not always true. So ensure you speak to the relevant user for you. So this is a mistake that many of us common make, whether we consider ourselves a user and start figuring out whether it makes sense to us, or sometimes our friends and family, right? So try and figure out who's the real segment that it matters and speak to someone from the relevant segment. For example, if you're building a startup for women, you've got to speak to women in the relevant segment for whom you're building it, to try and get pulse and insights. I think the second mistake I have seen is, I think, not looking at a lot of data. And in the early days also, it can be very relevant, especially if you have seen early traction and you're trying to discover more, right? I think then data plays an important role, and a lot of times in the garb of only speaking to customer, you end up missing a lot of insights that's easily available through secondary data. And third is, I think, ensure that your job as an entrepreneur or as a product builder is to finally storytell and narrate this both to folks who are partnering with you in solving the problem and to your customers. And the common mistake I have made is that either I have not done good storytelling to my customers or to my team, and hence either the execution's been poor, or sometimes I've executed very well but I've not been able to sell it to my customer.
Yeah. No, good. I think storytelling point, I completely agree. A lot of product managers I've seen who are pathetic storytellers, so they are not just able to bring everybody to the same page and drive and motivate people to the same area. But especially as entrepreneurs, I think that is arguably a very underrated skill, I would say. People talk about a lot of other things, but not about storytelling. Yeah. Okay, I think we can take one more question, and Akshat, if you can share the feedback form also with people about the session, and we can take one more question, and Sai Baba or Bharataksha.
Yeah, so Khilan, like generally my question is like how to what are the few things that keep in mind, like about I mean, I'm also building some startup in the investment sector or financial sector. So generally, right, what are few things I have to keep in mind about like being compliant and being like establish trust with the partners, because even in the early stage I want to partner with some of these startups. Even one of my friend is running the similar startup. Not similar startup, but I want to partner with him. So generally this is one question, and another question is like generally this is about my previous idea. During that time, like I talked to 50 SMEs and all of these. So that idea was validated, but I moved out of it because of my lack of expertise in the operations. But what is and lack of trust between the partners as well. Ecosystem suppliers that we involve. So generally, what do you think? Like how SMEs are like tolerant to the mistakes, or like a little bit of like messing up when it comes to B2B generally, because you have talked about like B2B and SMEs. So I just wanted to know your viewpoint on that as well.
Yeah, see, I mean, any user is not tolerant to something that makes his life tough, right? Whether it's a B2C or a B2B user. Just that Several times when you're solving a micro B2C problem, for that B2C user, the problem is so small that he doesn't care. So for a B2B MSME, if you're solving a problem that is very relevant and he cares about it and makes his lifetime, then yeah, he will not be happy, and you would have kind of gotten bad word for yourself, loosely calling bad NPS, and which will reflect in your ability to acquire new customers, right? Uh, and as long as you convince people that it's part of an alpha, beta, etc., then generally they're more receptive to treating it that way. Uh, I think establishing trust is very important, which is the other thing that you kind of trying to ask, right? In a partnership, both partners have to see value, which is uh, if you're trying to build something, you as well as the potential partner for whom you with whom you are attempting to partner to solve a problem, both of you have to see value, without which a partnership doesn't work. And also, by the way, the user has to see value in the partnership.
Yeah,
A lot of
like
times I have
generally, like they are like an RIA firm, like research analyst firm, and like we are like building like no code strategy platform. So like, but they also sell the strategies and ideas generally. So
correct. So yeah, as long as it's relevant for the user, in this case, you are right, because for the user it seems relevant.
yeah,
Now, as long as the partner sees value, it I think could be a potential fitment, and hence you should always think what is in it for them and what is in it for you, both when you get into partnership, and that's the conversation both of you should have as
yeah,
to how this will help you, how this will help me, and how this will help your user. Unless all three wins, I think the partnership doesn't succeed.
yeah. Thanks.
Okay. I think last question, Bharataksha. I don't think that's your name.
Yeah, hi. My name is Vinod. The question I am actually coming from the NGO side, because all we have discussed on the profit making stuff, right, in startup. How does this really work in NGO per se? Because on idea to PMF, because how do we? Because here, whenever you're talking about getting a co-founder or something, because then the intention would be something different, and even the investments, whatever they're going to put it up, it's actually going as a donations and other stuff, right? How to build it up.
Yeah.
So that's the first question. And second one, I did first typed it for I typed and asked, is it mandatory to to be present in Delhi all the time? Because as it's NGO stuff, we have to do something in Mumbai, because I'm based out of Mumbai. My name is Vinod.
Yeah.
So we took some few activities here, and as you're actually talking about, this is for a June 2024 cohorts, right? That's the
Yes.
selection which you're doing it right now.
Yes.
So I'm actually in the process of the ideation is being done, and possibly I will launch it by Feb March in Mumbai.
Mhm.
So because this particular idea I actually discussed with Shishir Gupta of Startup Lanes.
Mhm.
So he did agree that this is going to be a beneficial program, but we have to have a POC in place first.
Mhm.
So I'm actually trying to get that POC, because this is totally into a retail space, not in the manufacturing or anything on that sort.
Mhm.
So for the beneficial of the people in the healthcare domain.
Mhm.
So
So,
the question is, it might be a possibility when if I get into June, then it may come from not in just an ideation status. It may be on a scaling up.
yeah.
So will you guys even support at that point of time, or how does this really work? Because being in if I'm already finalized the place to be starting in Mumbai,
Understood.
I'm just bit of confused that on how I can be placed in Delhi and working in that way.
So, Vinod, I think we can anyways talk in detail when you register and then we have a one-on-one session. But I can give you some quick answers. First is that you can apply, and when you are going to start in June, it does not matter whether it has already started. Our accelerator doesn't mean that idea has to be only the startup has to be only at an idea state, even if it is already started, and we can still work on that. But yeah, the location thing might be a deal breaker, because we would expect the founder to be, at least for the 6-month duration while the program is running, to be based out of Gurgaon, because we want to be working together physically also. But I do see your point. We can take it up in our one-on-one conversation. On the PMF bit, I think it does not, as long as, suppose if you are creating a software, as you said, it's a retail thing. I think from a PMF perspective, product doesn't see the motive of that, right? It doesn't see whether it is a for-profit or a non-profit product. So if it is a software product, that is what I'm saying, then the same principles apply, whichever Khilan talked about, even for a non-profit organization. Of course, the objectives there are very different. However, if it is a very different setup, which is not a software, but actually a physical setup, there are concepts such as MVP and stuff, and pilot do work, because you don't have to necessarily create the entire whole 9 yards, as they say, right? And you can actually do it on small scale, and so those principles of product do apply for physical or non-software products also. So that is my short reply. However, as I said, you can apply, and we can talk in detail about your idea and how can we, if possible, make it work together.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the update. Let me complete my registration.
Sure. So I think that's it, guys. I think it is already 5 minutes past the time, and the feedback form has also been shared, so you can fill that. It will help us to understand how you guys felt about the session. I personally loved it and liked a lot of the anecdotes and things which Khilan spoke about. So thank you so much, Khilan, for your time, and I'm sure everybody loved this. And we have recorded this session. We'll also be uploading this on our YouTube channel very soon, so that for others who have not been able to join can at least go through this and learn. Thank you so much, Khilan. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Shailendra, for hosting me. Thanks, everyone, for joining in late evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
But I think what Amazon does very